Salutations, Internet. Drow Detective here. Most of you probably know me from Amino, where I post most of my works. I post role-playing guides, character creation guides. I'm currently working on a write-up of my Curse of Strahd campaign, and that's going pretty well. Glad to see people are enjoying it as much as they are. If you're not coming from Amino, and you're just coming out of random curiosity from some corner of the internet, welcome. This is my first YouTube video, technically speaking. What this channel is going to be about, mainly I'm going to post Dungeons & Dragons videos, obviously. Starting with some reviews. Reviews of modules, because I really like modules personally, and my favorite module here, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, will be the subject matter of this video. So, with that being said, any players, please click away from this video now. This guide is for Dungeon Masters, this review I should say. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but point your DM in this direction if they have not yet run this module and you want to play through it. It's a great urban adventure. On the cover here, we have an excellent artwork by Tyler Jacobson, very Star Wars-esque kind of movie poster with all the big baddies here, your full lineup. On the back, we have a nice piece of artwork of Dagult Neverember's Cache of Dragons that is hidden far beneath the city of Waterdeep. Opening up the book, we have a nice depiction of the currency of Waterdeep here. A foreword by Chris Perkins. The credits here, all the art credits, everyone here really does deserve to get a little shine in the spotlight. I'm going to try to get closer for that. It's not quite working, but oh well. Table of contents here with all the chapters. The pronunciation guide. They used to call these dramatis personae. It added a bit of a flavor to the whole thing. You've got your story overview here with the Cache of Dragons that Dagult Neverember has hid beneath Waterdeep. If you're familiar with the Neverwinter RPG, you're probably familiar with that character. The War in the Streets section here. I would like to stress the importance of this section. After Chapter 1, if Xanathar and Manshoon aren't your main villains, then this section sort of becomes irrelevant. But I really recommend hyping up this sort of gang war, the shadow war that's going on in the streets of Waterdeep. It will just add that extra edge to the campaign, and I really think that this book deserves it. Then, of course, it talks about Volo's quest, about how his friend has been kidnapped, and he wants the players to come save them, as he's gotten all mixed up for Raynar Neverember, Dagult's son. Then the fireball here of Trollskull Alley. We'll get to that when we get to that. 4 main villains here, technically 5. We've got the Xanathar. If you have a DM who can play a bombastic, insane beholder, Xanathar is the way to go. He's really fun. I personally, I did not try to run Xanathar, but I did include Xanathar in part of my game. And back then, I was very quiet, even more than I am now. So I am not much of a skilled role player necessarily. Hey, you know, I've only got off a couple years of experience, and Xanathar is definitely quite the load to carry. But if you have a DM who's been role playing for a few years now and knows the gist of everything, then Xanathar can be very fun. The Castlelanters here are the most obscure villains. They're not big names such as Manshoon, Jorlaxel, and Xanathar. The name Castellanter did appear in, I believe it was, Volo's Guide to Waterdeep in 3.5, but other than that, they're the sort of underdogs here, if you will. Devil worshippers, definitely if you want to go for a more serious campaign, the Castlelanters are what you want to go for. Jorlaxel Bainray, my personal favorite. I love the Salvatore novels, and in those novels, Jorlaxel is my favorite character. He's very charismatic and cunning, and you never quite know whose side he's on. He's kind of like a Jack Sparrow-esque character, but he's much more dandy, very proper. I quite liked role-playing Jorlaxel, and I quite liked role-playing his faces. You know, you never know it's him until the end, which I really like. I really enjoy. Then, of course, Manshoon here. This specific Manshoon has survived an encounter with Hallister Blackcloak, so quite a feat there. Manshoon's fun. In fact, my game started with Dragon Heist, then we moved into Tales of the Yawning Portal to continue the campaign, and Manshoon has sort of stepped up to that place of main villain in place of Jorlaxel. He's fun, though. Very intimidating, big wizard man. If you want to run sort of a even higher fantasy than Dungeons & Dragons usually is, Mansion is probably the way to go. There's a lot of espionage involved with his winter storyline as well, seeing as he is leader of a splinter cell of the Zentarum. The seasons here correlate to each villain, so theoretically, if you started in spring and ran Xanathar as the villain, you could make a campaign, an entire campaign out of this one book with each villain stepping up in their season to sort of take their shot at the cash, which I find very interesting. And I guess you don't have to start with Xanathar necessarily, just the beginning of the year, you know? The books you'll need to run the adventure, listed there. Beautiful spread image of Waterdeep here. It's really breathtaking, the artwork in this book. I'm going to sound like a broken record later on when we get to some of the art pieces in this book, but they really are beautiful, especially this. It's just so evocative, this image of the sunset over the water. I think you can see one of Jarlaxle's ships back there. Maybe not. Griffin Cavalry, Castle Waterdeep. It's just, oh, it's such a beautiful image. Here it talks about the structure, life in Waterdeep, Volo's Waterdeep, and Sheridion, which we'll get to when we get to the back of the book. Breaking the law and arresting characters. I really like that Waterdeep has a code legal, and this book gives you the code legal. I like that it's an urban adventure. You know, your players aren't going to be used to this stuff. They're going to used to be in dungeons, crawling around in the woods, fighting monsters. This is a very different style of campaign. A lot of sessions will go by without a single combat encounter, is what I found. Very similar to how my Curse of Strahd game went. Here's the adventure flowchart, the villain layers, and the history of the adventure, the background there. Here it talks about character creation, guilds of Waterdeep, if anyone wants to be a part of the guilds. There's a guild for everything in Waterdeep, is what you'll find if you've read anything about the city before. Here's milestone advancements for people who don't do XP. I personally do XP, at least in this campaign I do, as I just don't want to think about milestones, but I guess that's why that's there. Here it talks about the factions, the Brigand Diarthe. It's really fun if you've got a Dark Elf character in your party, so they can become a part of the Brigand Diarthe, and if you're running it in Autumn, then that will cause some party conflict there, some inner turmoil for the players. Very fun. One of my players almost played a Dark Elf, and I was very hyped to sort of play at that side of things, because I had already chosen Jarlaxle as my villain at this point. But alas, he decided not to. So, it is what it is. The Emerald Enclave, mainly composed of druids and nature clerics. Force Grey, what I like to call the FBI of Waterdeep. They're sort of the last resort, led by Vajra Safar, the Black Staff, the new Black Staff, that is. The Harpers, led by Mert, here at least. The Harpers are just a really fun faction. Those really Robin Hood-like guys and gals, you know. They're gonna be sticking up for everyone. They're gonna want what's best for everyone. Lord's Alliance is good for political espionage. One of my characters, or one of my players, became a member of the Lord's Alliance, not in Dragon Heist, but actually at the end of Curse of Strahd. Very interesting stuff. Order of the Gauntlet, the Order of Paladins in Waterdeep. If you want to know more about these guys, they're in the Rise of Tiamat two-parter module set released by Kobold Press. They're featured heavily in that. I believe they're the prominent faction that the players interact with. Xanathar Guild here, of course, the den of scum and villainy. It's a big monster mash of all these different Duergar and Deep Gnomes and Mind Flayers, and of course the big bad Beholder boss. Very, very fun. The Zentarum here is split into two in this module. One led by the clone of Manchun that resides in Waterdeep, and one led by Davos Starsong, who are trying to escape that dreadful wizard and his influence. Nice sprawl of the Yawning Portal here, very cartoonish in its art style. You'll look around, you can see some familiar faces here, like right there, I believe that's the Xanathar. There's Matthew Mercer. Very nice that they included him, as he was a story consultant, actually, on this book. I believe right here you can see Drist and Guinevere sleeping underneath that little table there. I believe, yeah, that's Caddybury and Bruner as well. The other guy whose name escapes me right now. A lot of fun stuff in this tavern. Here's Volo. Yeah, very cool, very interesting. Nice and cartoony. Here it talks about some NPCs the players might encounter in the Yawning Portal. Chapter 1, A Friend in Need. This should take you no more than a session, I found. Volo's a very fun character to roleplay. This sort of author guy who goes on these grand adventures with with like Elminster and stuff, and he's just got this little like CR 1/4 stat block. The Tavern Brawl section here is like one of the recommended ways to start the module. I personally, I ran this, and this was back when I was a quieter DM, so there's a lot of shouting involved here, and I wasn't quite able to play it up as much as I should have been able to. So if you're a more introvertive DM, I do recommend maybe starting it some other way. Maybe just Volo sends a letter to each of the characters and asks them to meet in the tavern would be a nice way. Here it talks about the investigation, finding Floon, where he's gone off to. Here's like a whole like investigation chain of searching the dock ward. What I found here is the old Zoblob shop is sort of out of place here. It doesn't have any bearing on the investigation, and it makes more sense that you'd that should be something I feel that should be mentioned in Xanathar's lair or something like that in his chapter. It's like, oh yeah, he's also got this spy here in the dock ward that does stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's fun though. It's a fun little encounter. He talks about the Zentarum hideout that's been raided by Kinku. City Watch arrives. At this point, one of my players had charmed a guard, and they were about to be arrested the next session. It was very fun. And here's the Xanathar's Guild hideout. Very nice map there. The maps in this book are very simplistic, and I like it for that. Maps are more of like a backdrop for me, even though I really like drawing maps, personally. Trollskull Alley, this is where Volo will give the party their tavern, and they can choose to renovate it or not. My party chose to renovate it. I think all parties that play this module really should choose to renovate the tavern, as it's very fun. A lot of roleplay comes from it. It's really good. Here's every building on Trollskull Alley and descriptions for them here. Just a very nice neighborhood sort of setting for the adventure, and you know, you got your players running a tavern. It's very nice, very nice. Here's all of the side quests. These side quests for each of the factions, what they give in the book is, it shouldn't be run like it is in the book. These are like writing prompts, essentially, for you to expand upon, I feel. If you just run them like they are, then they're going to be very short and not too satisfying. And of course it talks about open for business, about renovating the tavern with all these different guilds coming to the players. Then Immick Froon with Froon's Brews. He's a very fun rival for Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a very slice-of-life chapter, and I like it for that. I like that it's not this big, epic campaign storyline from the start, you know? It's just, you're living in Waterdeep, and all of a sudden, Fireball hits your street, and you've got to find out what's happening. Chapter 3 is also another chapter that shouldn't take you too long. Nice art of Jarlaxle. I do like how, even if it's not autumn, Jarlaxle will be interested in inviting the players to the dock ward, to his ships, and talking to them. Growlhund Villa, very interesting situation here, the Growlhund Villa encounter. I believe it changes slightly with the season as well. But it's very nice here. One of my players was actually a member of the Zentarum when Davos Starsong's Zentarum, when it came collapsing down at the end of this chapter. So it was very interesting to see how he coped with that and how he sort of had to lay low for a little bit. Yeah, bad time to be a Zent. Then, of course, Dragon Season. You've got your spring, summer, autumn, and winter encounter chains that will lead you on this epic chase through the city. This epic investigative chase. Defined the Stone of Galore. And here's all of the encounters that I'll flip through. This is a very fun section. This will take you about 1 to 2 sessions, I feel. I believe it took me 2, yes. There's usually a break somewhere in there, like for the characters to catch a little breather before they get right back to investigating and going to the next place. This is very fun stuff, though. A rooftop chase here. All of it's really cool. Then, of course, at the end here, if I can flip through it fast enough, we've got the Cache of Dragons. Nice artwork of Aranox here and the cache itself. Although I believe that's slightly inaccurate. I don't think there's a set of stairs that leads down to it. Could be wrong. Here's the actual vault itself. If I were to recommend to change one thing about this vault, it'd be this enthralling fresco. It's really just annoying, if anything else, and I feel like it's just there to be like, oh, we made a dungeon, we've got to have traps and stuff in it, you know, and the traps, I don't feel were very well thought out, so this fresco, it can pretty much go. There's also in V7 here, the secret to opening the trapdoors. You've got to say something that you never told anyone else before, and if a character doesn't know who Dumathuin is or isn't a dwarf, then there's no way of knowing, essentially. Like, if everyone fails their history checks, there's no way of knowing that riddle. So maybe that's something you want to think about for your campaign. Then it talks about all the factions here that gather when you leave the vault. I personally think you should limit it to one faction, a villainous faction, and an allied faction, as things can get really clustered. Really clustered here at the end, if you just throw in every faction that the players have met. It talks about the conclusion. Onward and downward, if you want to run Dungeon of the Mad Mage after this. Here, apologies for that. Here are the villain layers. I'm just going to quickly flip through these. Here's Xanathar's. He's a very fun villain. If your characters have a teleportation key for Xanathar's lair, like my characters did, they defeated Nihilor, then that's something you'll have to look out for. That entire this little area here. Something you should probably plan for. I have not yet planned for that, so thank God they haven't decided to go further than they already have in that area. Chapter 6, Hell of a Summer. Of course, the Castellanters, Villa. Very nice. There's imps here. Fun stuff. It gives a heist feel, even more than Dragon Heist already does. When you're breaking into the mansion, it's like, oh, we've got to be sneaky about this, you know? We can't just go out there in broad daylight. Jarlaxle's 3 ships here, the Sea Maiden's Fair. Here's the map for all 3 of them, and then each room has differences depending on which ship it is. And, of course, under the eye catcher, the flagship. Oh, nice autumn art here. I really like the 2 Brigand Yarthe members carrying away this unconscious humanoid. Then, of course, there's the submarine under the eye catcher, which Jarlaxle spends most of his time in. It's just cool that he has a little submarine under there. Very fun. And Winter Wizardry, Manshoon's little sanctum here in the Kolot Towers. That'll about round out the villains, I believe. And we get to Volo's Waterdeep Enchiridion. Personally, this is my favorite part about Dragon Heist, is the Volo's Waterdeep Enchiridion. It's an 18-page little mini appendix that gives you history on Waterdeep, things to do in Waterdeep, a bunch of lore, a bunch of events, and all this other stuff. It's really cool. I read this 3 times over before doing my Waterdeep campaign, and it proved enormously useful. It's not as detailed as Volo's Guide to Waterdeep, but it's just, for what it is, it's really good. It has really cool stuff here, and stuff that even, like, isn't mentioned in the normal book. You can take from the Enchiridion and just put it in there, you know? I remember there's this section in the Enchiridion about, here's, like, speak like a native for your NPCs if you want, like, little Waterdeep phrases for them. Oh, beautiful. There's, like, a little section on, like, alleyways, and there's temples and stuff like that, all the wards. There's a section on important alleyways, or special alleyways in Waterdeep, and in the Dragon Season chapter, I believe it is, they find the little Nimblewright in the alleyway. And in the module as it's written, it's just, yeah, here it is. It's just a normal alleyway with nothing special going on. I'm surprised that they didn't decide to choose one of these, you know, but I did. I chose Farah's Alley, so they had to, like, talk to the little gossiping skulls that were there. It was very fun. Here's all of these celebrations in the city, all the holidays. The magic items. What you'll notice about this book is that the magic items are not meant for your players, essentially. At least most of them aren't. Most of these are going to be magic items that the NPCs in the game will have. I like the Black Staff, the Lord's Ensemble, the Stone of Galore players will hopefully get. Then here's all the monsters that they add, all the stats for everything. The Cavalry, which are very interesting. Very interesting part of Waterdeep is the Griffin Cavalry. I quite like them. Drow Gunslingers. I believe that this book, here with Poisonous Pistol, this book was the first 5e book to introduce firearms, or rules for them. So that's very interesting. Jarlaxle and Laeral Silverhand Stat, the Open Lord of Waterdeep. There she is in all of her glory. There's a flying snake of the Zentarum there. Mert here. How fabulous Mert. The first character Ed Greenwood ever made for the realms. Nihilor. I love how Nihilor looks. He's such a cool mind flayer in my opinion. Of course there's a Nimblewright. Bashra Safar. And then stats for Volo. Walking Statue of Waterdeep. NPC handouts here. Personally, here's the Code Legal. Personally, I find that this book is the best module, at least from the ones that I've read and flipped through. But certainly one of the best modules for 5e. I love how different it is to normal modules. You know, it's not going to be high adventure. It's going to be this espionage sort of pulpy, very city drama, detective drama almost. And of course, where better to set it than Waterdeep itself, the greatest city in the Sword Coast. Really, it's brilliantly put together. For me, personally, it's going to be a 9 out of 10. With a couple of adjustments, you can easily make this a 10 out of 10 game. That'll be it for me, however. So I hope to see you guys in the next one. I plan on reviewing Curse of Strahd soon. I have some interesting thoughts on that module that I would like to share with the world. Until then, do check me out on Amino, on the Dungeons & Dragon Amino. My name is the Drow Detective. Checking me out there it will do a lot for me. Yeah, give me feedback on my work, you know. Don't just like everything, please. Please comment and sort of give me feedback on what to do differently, how I should update my style, and any improvements I need to make. That will, I believe, round this one off.